in a moment, Mr. Sheldon, but can you guarantee that owner-operator drivers would not be worse off under this scheme?
Well, first of all, I'll just take a point with you're saying that owner-drivers are opposing having a safe, fair rate of remuneration. That's simply untrue. What's happening at the moment is that clients and the federal government, the people that bankroll the Liberal Party, like Coles, the banks that are also covered by this tribunal, the oil companies, all of which are being held to account for their security arrangements in banks, how fuel companies put their contracts out.
But Toll, Linfox, ACCI and the AIG don't support this either.
The horrible deaths that occurred in the northern beaches of Mona Vale. And we've seen quite clearly there was a proposition put up by owner-drivers through the union. We have 20,000 members that are owner-drivers. So the position that you've put is actually inaccurate. And I appreciate that you've put a position that's been honestly put, because there's been a dishonest campaign run by some elements of the industry, which are about unsafe rates, unsustainable rates, that are putting people seriously at risk.
I'll get to that in just one moment, but if I can put something to you that one of our viewers wrote to me last night, and this is, in their words, the minimum payments means, for example, that a job that once cost $2,000 will now cost $4,000 for the owner-driver, but the fleet operator can still do it for $2,000. Owner-drivers will lose work. Hirers of owner-drivers have already stated that they'll stop engaging owner-drivers when the order starts on April 4th, 2016. Now, we know what's happened today, but is any of that true?
Well, Laura, there's a couple of things that are very critical in this. That set rates for owner-drivers exist in a whole series of industries in New South Wales and other parts of the country that are substantially higher than this rate that's been proposed. And I'd say to that person that sent you the email that I'd really encourage them to contact us, because their employer and the client they work for have an obligation to pay them as an owner-driver a sustainable rate that means they can maintain their vehicle and get a fair return. Because we have an industry which is 15 times the national average of deaths of any other industry. We've had report after report, including the government's 2 reports they've just released, that have said that remuneration and payment systems within the trucking industry is causing deaths. It is a clear correlation between the two.
All right, let's just drill into that for a moment then, because there are mechanisms to ensure that drivers do appropriate hours and are getting enough sleep. There's a logbook, there's a odometer, but are you saying that some drivers are getting around this and that's what is causing the roads to be unsafe?
No, I'm saying actually even more than that, because the National Transport Commission, a series of professors, the government's own reports have said that clients have been pressuring trucking companies, which then pressure drivers to work extraordinary hours. And what we've seen is, because of a low margin industry and it's a price taking industry, those clients have been putting so much pressure on that drivers are getting killed. Now, what this tribunal was set up, and quite rightly set up with the support of the majority within Parliament, was that there was a tribunal set up to make those clients, the big Coles and their massive profits, and the banks and the oil companies, accountable for the economic pressure they apply in their supply chain. If you don't get paid enough to run your vehicle, then you sweat your capital, you sweat your maintenance, and you sweat your own labour as an owner-driver. And if you're as an employee, then the same thing happens with the transport company you're working for. So this proposal has been overwhelmingly supported, including by the International Labour Organisation. Only last year, international employers from around the world, international governments from around the world, and trade union representatives negotiated an arrangement that said exactly what this tribunal has been doing is accurate, correct and sensible. It's only McKellar Cash and those that are exploiting truck drivers that want it stopped.
Okay, so we have seen, though, even unionised companies not supporting it anymore today. Toll, Linfox and also ACCI Group and the AIG have gone to the federal court to have this overturned. So what do you say to that?
Look, so this is the other misnomer. This is not a union versus non-union fight. This is not an owner-driver versus employee fight. That's what the people that want to destroy it have been saying. The Australian Industry Group has said they want the tribunal abolished, just like McKellar Cash, because they represent clients that turn around and have to pay a safe rate to transport companies and to employees and to owner drivers.
Okay, so sorry to interrupt you, but the counter argument that they would put to you there is that this pushes owner drivers out of, it forces them to work for unionised industries. This is a sweetheart deal done by the Gillard government. What do you say to that?
Well, Laura, your own introduction saying there's some different views from different transport companies, some that support and some industry bodies support the arguments about the detail of the rate. There is very few companies, and there is certainly large numbers of owner drivers, many thousands upon thousands support having proper remuneration so they can drive their business appropriately and properly maintain their vehicles. Truck drivers want to be able to maintain their vehicles and drive safely, and clients want the cheapest rate at the lowest price. And we've seen this with the recent fireball, terrible fireball in Mona Vale, where a fuel company engaging employee drivers, where a driver was charged for the death of 2 people that were incinerated once that fireball occurs. And yet we've seen that the company was given a contract by Coles and Shell that meant that they could not maintain their vehicles.
Okay.
They actually gave the contract to a company who had 7.5 times worse lost time injuries than the next contractor that put price in and had vehicles 20 years older. That's an example of the pressure that's applying in this industry, and it's a pressure that has to be taken off.
Okay, I want to put a few other issues to you as well. Looking at the truck-related death statistics, in 2008 there was 264, in 2015 there was 192. Neither of those figures are acceptable, but it would seem that the safety issue is getting better. So why do you need the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal when they are the facts, but also when you've got the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator, the National Road Safety Strategy, the National Transport Commission, the Heavy Vehicle National Law and state and territory safety legislation? Why do you need the tribunal on top of all of those things?
Well, Laura, what's quite clear, there's only one tribunal that deals with the economics in the industry and that makes clients accountable, and that's this tribunal. There's an industry which has 15 times the national average of any other deaths of any other industry. We're always in the top 5 bankruptcies for any industry, insolvencies in this industry than any other industry. We've got 25 people that were killed in truck-related issues, and if you want to say that 192 people, you say to their mums and dads and their kids and their fathers and their daughters and their children that got slaughtered because of fatigue-related pressure, and you say to them that their lives are worth not as much as any of our lives, well then I think you've got it the wrong way around.
Well, I wasn't saying that, but I was just putting some statistics for you and to you. And look, none of these deaths are acceptable. But going back to the livelihoods of these people and these owner-operated truck drivers, if all is as you say it is, why is it that some of these owner drivers have been told by contractors that their work is drying up, and can the union help them?
Well, first of all, and I've said this very publicly, and many of our owner drivers in those areas, see, our owner driver members actually get paid a higher rate than this rate that's been struck.
What about non-members?
And well, this is actually what this rate is, to protect them from the exploitation that's occurring. This is actually a position from how we clean this industry up and make it safer and make the clients accountable.
But how do you make the clients accountable if they're threatening to take that work away?
You make the clients accountable because any driver that is put off by actually receiving the safe, fair rate has a right to hold both their company to account, but have a right to take action both legally and any other action they wish to take. I will support them against those clients that are literally driving this industry to the death. Your statistics have not taken into account the serious number of injuries, let alone the actual human cost that's been put to you. And quite clearly, these are too many deaths, substantially too many injuries, and an industry that has too many suicides. We now have, from the Victorian Coroner's report, where we have the highest incidence of suicides of any industry in the country. That sounds like an industry in chaos, and one that we should make sure that Coles, the federal government, the oil companies, and certainly the banks be held accountable for their unsafe, unfair practices.
All right, Tony Sheldon, sorry, just quickly.
So I just want to say this, is that we've made an application for all companies to be paid within 30 days, and we're saying to everybody out there, trucking companies included, get behind having a sustainable, safe industry. Our lives do depend on it.
Tony Sheldon, we thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Laura.